been a congressman now for 6 weeks. Been in Idaho for 40 years, and as a business person, I think, like many of you, I've never been in a circumstance where the economic prospect for ourselves and our kids has been more at risk. It is clear that in order to turn the economy around, it's going to require a partnership. And it's going to require clear thinking and a high quality of civic decision-making at all levels. I think we in Washington, collectively, the Congress and the administration, with the help of the agency, have the responsibility to make the right decisions. And it seems to me that there are decisions in 4 areas. One is we have to provide, as those of us who studied economics in college, in this kind of circumstance, you have to be the employer of last resort and provide the funding that will put people back to work. There's been a lot of argument about the components of the stimulus bill. It's now law, and that's the first building block turning the economy around. What we also need, I think, all to appreciate that there are at least 3 more building blocks that we at the federal level need to do as well. The second one is the one that we will be considering next week in the Congress, and that is proposals to stop the spiral of mortgage foreclosures, which throw people out of work, are very costly to the financial institutions, cause blight in neighborhoods, and tend to escalate the economic crisis that we are currently in. We will be addressing that in Congress this coming week. The third thing, and I think it may be the most underappreciated, is that stimulus doesn't work, and halting mortgage foreclosures is only temporary unless you have a functioning banking and financial system. And right now, the U.S. banking and financial system is frozen. It is talking to people at the Treasury and private economists. We need collectively to inject, because of their losses, their investment side of their portfolio, we need to invest somewhere between 1 and 2, probably closer to $2 trillion of new capital into our financial institutions to get them functioning to the point where they can prudently make loans. And that is, stimulus doesn't work. It simply fizzles out. It may create one job, it doesn't create the follow-on jobs. When you build that new highway, you've got an intersection that's suitable for a 7-Eleven or a McDonald's or something higher class here in Moscow. If the business person that wants to build that establishment can't get a construction loan, can't get operating capital, or can't lease the equipment needed for the construction project. So we've got to get the banking system functioning. And that capital needs to be private capital. It's on the sidelines right now, and some government inducement is going to be required to get that in. That is Secretary Geithner's problem. He's made a preliminary discussion about approaches. That program needs to be spelled out, and put into place. And I think it will be over the coming months. We need those 3 things, then we need one more thing. And that is, since most of consumer spending, most of spending in the economy is consumer driven. President Obama needs to get the best speech of his life, identifying what the government has done and getting people confident that we can again resume our lives, pay tuition for our kids in college, that they'll have jobs and get the consumer side of the economy started again. The template for this was what happened in the 30s. We don't want to repeat the 30s, but all of these things need to be done. They need to be done quickly, and they need to be done effectively. And that's the part of the process I'm involved in. And it's a sobering responsibility. Once those things are done, it's important that we in Washington partner with you in the public responsibilities in the private sector to ensure that Idaho, and more particularly education, the University of Idaho, gets its fair share of this nearly $1 billion that is going to come to Idaho, 200 million of which is earmarked for education. And there's a lot of money. The reason I'm here is I spent some time, a couple of hours at the University of Idaho this morning, talking with officials there about things that projects that might qualify for some of this new money, particularly the research money. With the premier research institution, we should ensure that we fund these projects where we have global leadership, national leadership, and expertise that's going to help the economy as a whole. So I look to work in partnership with those at the university and those here in the community to make sure that Idaho's interests are protected, we get our fair share, and that the projects that are worthy of funding get that funding. It's really important for this community and to our state that happens. At that point, the federal job is over, and the most important part of the task begins. And that's that those of you, and there's a lot in this room, who have responsibilities in either the private sector or the public sector, must ensure that this money is wisely spent and not wasted. And it's essential that once we provide it, that you collectively ensure that that is the case. Because with every nickel of this having to be borrowed overseas, added to our national debt, repaid by our kids and grandkids, we can't afford to waste this tremendous amount of money. So my message to you is I am working very hard as a new congressman to try to ensure that the first part of this is done in ways that make sense from the taxpayer standpoint and is helpful to you. And I'm personally proud to be able to turn the responsibility within spending the money wisely and actually creating the jobs and turning the economy over to people in this room. I will say that I think Lake County and the city of Moscow is particularly advantaged in this task because I've had the opportunity to get to know, and there are many in this room, county commissioners, city councilmen, and the mayor. And I don't think any place in Idaho we have as many dedicated and intelligent and capable people in positions of civic leadership. I know the private community a little less well, but as a businessman, I certainly appreciate the work that leading businessmen in this community have done as well. So we've got a great team and a heavy responsibility. And there's no person that's more central to this than the person that you really want to hear from today. A woman I've gotten to know quite well over the past year. A woman who grew up born in Seattle, raised in San Francisco, got 2 degrees, nursing and psychology down where I live in Boise. Had the good sense to come up to Moscow, pursue a master's degree, and then had the, I think it's good sense, Nancy, to meet Gary Bryant, who is a professor at run a veterinary ophthalmic business over in, professor at WSU, and runs a veterinary ophthalmic business here. And I'm not sure Nancy knew what she was getting into, because she shortly thereafter found herself not just nursing, but as a mother of, what, 5 children? That you must have really liked Gary to have taken on that responsibility. But the responsibility of being an instant mother, a nurse, a runner who, every time I come to Moscow, I'm grateful for that Blues Trail that you had a lot to do with, increasing civic responsibilities, leading to a city council seat, and now as the mayor of the intellectual capital of Idaho, I think we are extremely well served, and it's a great personal pleasure for me to introduce your mayor and to learn a little about the future of the city of Moscow from Nancy James.